Happy Tornado Tuesday. Today's April 1st, 2025, and this is your U.S. Tornado Forecast, a weekly look at tornado activity across the United States. I'm meteorologist Andrew Pritchard, and I run the SkyDrama.net blog and this YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm both a meteorologist and storm chaser with a couple decades of experience forecasting tornadoes, and simultaneously just some guy on the internet thinking out loud about tornadoes once a week. You're ultimately responsible for any decisions you make based off of this video. Now let's talk tornadoes. Let's start off with last week's outlook. I was watching one day in particular, Sunday, March 30th. This was the map that I drew on Tuesday, and I mentioned that northern zone here I was a little uncertain on. We could drag it north, we could kind of shut it down based on how precipitation behaved earlier in the day. We did indeed drag that risk northward as time went on. It was really kind of the day before into the morning that I started to become a little bit more concerned about tornadoes here. We had a lead impulse lifting out of Missouri into central Illinois and then eventually into northern Indiana and southern portions of Michigan. We had several tornadoes. I was out producing doing some live coverage here, producing a little bit of content. We ended up having a rain-wrapped tornado very close to us here in Champaign-Urbana. Warning went out. There was a little rain-wrapped circulation. The tornado touched down here, tracked near the town of Sodorus up toward Tolono. And I'm kind of going to zoom in here. Caused some damage here right as the tornado ended at US 45. There's a building here that collapsed. There was some damage there and a small fire started, but there was several outbuildings, some trees that were damaged along that route. Again, from southwestern Champaign County up near Sodorus and then just north of Tolono. I work, just over here. I've got an office that's south of Champaign-Urbana. That tornado would have been heading right for the office there. And then, of course, I live up in Urbana. So, go back to March 14th. We had a tornado touchdown here near Sellers and then track up toward Gifford. 2 weeks later, we got a tornado southwest of Champaign-Urbana, and then we've had them kind of surrounding. So, last year, the last couple of years, really missed out on a lot of the severe weather across central Illinois. It's been pretty active across central Illinois the last couple of springs, but in Champaign County, we really missed out on that. But seems to be, so far at least in 2025, the last couple of weeks, these tornadoes really kind of targeting me here at home in Champaign. It was a widespread severe weather outbreak, though. We had several tornadoes that kind of occurred here and there. We didn't really manifest the big tornado outbreak across this region. Some were expecting here. I kind of entertained that idea. Didn't end up chasing down that direction just because I thought, my chance of seeing a pretty cool storm was going to be just as high up closer to home versus driving 4 or 5 hours south here down toward the Delta region, where they did have several supercells. Of course, producing some big hail, and in some cases, some gusty winds, a couple of tornadoes reported there. And then the northern mode here, again, two distinctly different waves. This one produced a lot of wind damage. We had winds gusting anywhere from 65 up to an estimate of 100 miles per hour in parts of east central Illinois, and then some fatalities from the winds across northern Indiana. So a significant severe weather day, nonetheless, even though it wasn't necessarily a big tornado outbreak. Of course, down here, you see those tornado reports here in Champaign County, tornado moving from the southwest corner just north of Tolono, 12-mile path with EF1 damage there. And I did get out. Again, I was chasing, providing some live coverage. This was from that same complex that produced the tornado in southwestern Champaign County. This was near the town of Allerton, which is on the Champaign County-Vermilion County border. Not far from where the tornado touched down, and I made my way back that way after the storms. Then this was the building that collapsed here near the end of that EF1 tornado's path, some of the damage here. So obviously not the strongest building in the world, but all four walls collapsed. You see the foundation here was blown off of the foundation, and then several pieces of debris were blown up against this building here. And then you can't really see it, but there were power lines here lining the road, and around one of them, there's some, metal that's wrapped around the power lines. It cut some of the wires up here. So pretty serious situation, even though this tornado was completely invisible, wrapped in rain there, just making it, even more dangerous there with the difficult to see and fast moving nature. Now let's get into what we want to really talk about here, which is a busy week. Getting started with some severe weather potential, the chance for tornadoes here the next several days, but then this area that I highlighted here, watching Thursday, Friday, and Saturday later in the week, this is kind of a low risk for severe weather every day, but really we're going to be talking about an increasing flood disaster across this region. Some areas here could see some catastrophic flooding with repeated rounds of showers and storms with strong flow from the Gulf northward and then, strong flow aloft, kicking off daily rounds of showers and storms, some of which are going to be severe, some of which may produce tornadoes. That's going to be kind of a harder to pick out in advance kind of, situation to be a day-by-day nowcast forecast, where in general, the big problem is a lot of thunderstorms over the same areas, and that's going to lead to really excessive rainfall. across parts of the Ohio, the Wabash, and the Mississippi rivers, and then some of the smaller rivers and streams and tributaries across the area. And then, of course, difficult for farmers who are trying to plan out their early spring operations are going to be having to kind of just wait and get a late start as we deal with a lot of rain, and this rain has to go somewhere. So this is not a flood video. This is a tornado video. We're talking about a low confidence chance for a couple of tornadoes here from the Oklahoma City metro up toward Kansas City, and then parts in between. And it's kind of a late day evolution here, kind of right up to sunset. We'll be watching for some storms to initiate along the dry line here, and then we have also kind of a warm front situation where we could get some storms developing near or potentially north of the warm front across Kansas, Missouri, and Iowa as we get toward the later part of the day. Wednesday, we have a more significant widespread potential for severe weather, but we still got a lot of uncertainty here, and there's actually several different zones that I've been watching. I ended up putting one area of high confidence here across parts of northern and central Illinois, kind of right on the occluding low, what would be kind of the triple point here, where we'll get into the specifics, but I think this area has the best chance of seeing some clearing as we get into the early and middle part of the afternoon. We get the jet streak kind of impinging on this region. And I think that we might get, a broken line of, if not a couple of supercells that may be tornadic here across the interstate, 80 and 74 corridors here. Again, not 100% sure on where this is going to go. We have big model discrepancies right now, and I'm kind of leaning into some and leaning out of others, and I'll kind of, show my work here in a moment. But zone number one that I'm probably considering the highest for my own storm observation chances, where I think the most likely zone is that we'll see some tornadoes here, is going to be across northern and central Illinois. Now, my second zone has been kind of eastern Illinois into southern Indiana, parts of southwestern Ohio, maybe northern Kentucky. I think this evolves later in the day, where maybe as the system starts to come together, we're going to be dealing with maybe a remnant area of rain and thunderstorms across this area during the early to middle part of the day, which kind of introduces some questions about the quality of the thermal profile there. How unstable is it going to be? We know we have the wind shear across this whole area I shaded. Wind shear is not a problem. It's, where are we actually going to get the thermals that are volatile enough to get supercells, sustained supercells in some sort of meaningful way? So again, zone one, high confidence. Zone 2 over here, low confidence, eastern, southeastern Illinois, over into Indiana and Ohio, northern Kentucky. And then the third zone is going to be down here across the Delta region into parts of western Kentucky and Tennessee, maybe northwestern parts of Mississippi, southeastern Missouri. This is kind of zone 3, where I think after dark, there's a pretty good chance for some tornadic supercells. Some of those could be significant, producing damaging tornadoes. But again, I have questions about how early in the day that gets going, and then what the storm mode is going to be. We could have some linear or upscale growth across this region. So again, before I get into the models, when I'm talking about me heading out trying to see a tornado or at least see a supercell tomorrow, I lean toward this kind of northwestern zone here, where I think this might be your best chance of documenting a visible supercell thunderstorm base, and by doing that, maybe have the best chance of seeing a tornado. I think that there will probably be some tornado-warned storms in this zone later in the day, but I think that storm mode could obscure those. I think time of day could obscure those, with this zone kind of peaking later in the day towards sunset. And then I definitely think there's going to be some viewing issues down in this area where we have storm mode concerns. And then I think I have a higher chance this environment doesn't really come together till 6, 7, 8 o'clock, if not 9 or later. So I think this is like a 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. outbreak zone here across the Delta. And that does not interest me all that much when I could stay much closer to home and have the same hemming and hawing through the day, because I think that no area has a guaranteed slam dunk chance of, significant tornadoes. I just kind of think this area has the best chance. And then as we get into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, this corridor here going to be dealing with, probably a marginal to enhanced risk every day with that 5 to 10% area for tornadoes that we'll kind of have to just suss out each day. But I think the bigger problem that we'll be talking more as we get to Thursday, Friday, Saturday is going to be flooding, but still flirting with the idea. I kind of mentioned in a group chat today, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm chasing Saturday, somewhere across this zone, somewhere in the Delta, the Ohio River Valley. So let's jump into it. The sun is coming up here on Tuesday morning, and we've got a lot to see. We've got kind of cold air still lingering here behind the weekend storm system across the Midwest. It's colder and drier. So unlike the system from Sunday, the moisture is not already in place. We're going to be relying on that moisture to make its way north. You can see it right here, kind of the low-level clouds you see making their way through Texas and Louisiana. This is the deeper moisture. If I was to go ahead and put the product overlays here, station plots, we can see that. I know it's going to be tough to make out the numbers, but the green numbers are your dew points. So we have, up in this area, 20s and 30s. You got your 40s, mid 40s right here. And then, immediately as you get into the white shaded area here, those low clouds, you're talking 50s and 60s dew points and even some 70s here right on the Gulf Coast. So that's your moisture. Let me take the, overlays off. It makes it difficult to see. And then if I just put the 500 millibar analysis up here, so here's your 500 millibar jet stream winds. You see the tightly packed, lines here. That is a very fast jet stream flow. And again, this is your system coming in. You see the trough right there, the ridge out ahead of that. This is a classic setup here as we get into a pretty textbook spring severe weather outbreak here, kind of a multi-day severe weather outbreak. That first day in the plains and the second day in the Midwest. That is our classic progression. So let's jump into it. And I'm going to pull up the HRRR first, even though I trust it the least. And, I keep mentioning this, that I'm probably one of the few people who still trust the NAM more than I do the HRRR, but I think that I've, been showing my work and having my answers justified here, or my reasoning justified, as the NAM definitely handled Sunday much better than the HRRR did. So right now the HRRR going after that, chance of a supercell or a tornado near sunset across the Central Plains, initiating one just north of Oklahoma City. This is the 12Z run here Tuesday morning. Let's just run this forward. You see some warm air advection driven showers and storms here from kind of northern Kansas into central and northern Illinois. Some of this could be severe across Kansas. This should not really be severe unless we're talking about some hail across northern and central Illinois during the overnight. As we get into kind of the early morning hours, the HRRR, I generally believe this, an area of showers and storms lifting north through the area. But the HRRR kind of keeps this line of storms going, or kind of expands it during the early morning hours down along the cold front. This would be 9 a.m. tomorrow. This would be about noon to 1 p.m. tomorrow. And then as we get into kind of the peak event time, we've got this blob of rain extending from Illinois and Indiana down into the Mississippi Delta, almost post-frontal here. Just kind of a blobby, rainy look. So let's wind it back. Let's look at the NAM. This is the 3-kilometer NAM. We'll take this through the same progression. Here's your Tuesday afternoon, your Tuesday evening. You see the NAM is trying to initiate these supercells down here near Oklahoma City, but kind of fails to do so because it's a little more moisture starved. We'll look at some of the differences here. Just doesn't quite have the juice there, but we still get the warm air advection driven storms here kind of up and along the warm front in northern and northeastern Kansas after dark. This is 8, 9, 10 o'clock later on this evening. Northern and central Illinois, you see those showers and storms ongoing across that region as well. Now the difference here, we get these showers and storms, still going through the morning. This is about sunrise. We'll be waking up to an area of showers and storms. As meteorologists, we sometimes see this and then we go to bed and we wake up the next morning and we say, oh boy, a lot of showers and storms across the target. This is really going to hurt our chances for severe weather. But then what happens is, this is well advertised. We get the dry punch at 700 millibars that comes in. Boom, clears it out. Now it's sunny. It's becoming volatile here across parts of Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois. This is 1 p.m. You go ahead and flip it on over and look at, we're starting to destabilize here. We got this little tongue of deeper moisture and instability here as we get the combination of moisture ahead of the surface low and sunshine here thanks to the 700 millibar dry punch that comes in. So we're starting to destabilize the environment. The front is coming in. We've got that jet streak right overhead. So all of the best dynamics are all right here. So if we get the sunshine, it's going to explode. And that's what exactly the NAM3 is showing here. Like 4, 5 p.m., we get a broken line of supercells that initiates across northern into west central Illinois. And, if the environment is getting that sunshine, again, just ahead of the surface low, deep moisture coming up, that tongue of, low to mid 60s dew points comes up to meet the surface low, the jet streak, and the kind of remnant dry line. I haven't really kind of determined, is this cold front? No, it's not. So again, you're seeing the line where the storms are initiating here. And this is, you can see kind of drier air on the backside. It's a bit of I was kind of running this back and forth. You can kind of see this little surge right here that comes on in and meets it right up here. So I don't know. I'm starting to get into this. And then as I kind of look at the 12-kilometer NAM, and this is kind of just taking a little bit less of the dew points, a little bit less of the detail. Sorry, that's what I meant to say there. This is what I would, kind of like to refer to as a go here stupid target. when you start to see this little curl here, you got the moisture curling up and around the low there, and then you've got this dry punch coming in. And this is what I was trying to show with the 3 kilometer name, and you kind of lose it. But again, you see this dry punch coming in early in the afternoon, and it meets that, volatile environment here across maybe northwestern and west central Illinois during the early afternoon. And you get, again, just a little, band or an arcing band or a broken line of supercells across this area. And again, you got the instability up here. It is ready to go. So we'll just take a sounding from this area, kind of across northwestern Illinois. We'll see what we got here. And it's not going to be perfect, but you see, these are the things I look for. Again, steep lapse rates near the ground, that's what helps stretch that vorticity. And then, it's not the fattest cape here in the, low to mid levels, but it's got enough, especially when consider all of the upper level dynamics. Now, the hodograph, again, it's a little bit long. And geez, look at the storm motion it's estimating here. It's like 70 knots, basically. But you've got a little more vorticity since you're kind of right on where the surface low is wrapping around. So what I look for when I'm trying to kind of decide on this go here stupid target area, and what I mean again by that is just that little, let me go ahead and bring it over. It shows up really well when you pull up something like the EHI. So you see it here, just kind of that little curl where you've got the environment kind of impinging here. You get that little surge. You initiate some robust storms right in this area. Again, and if you've got this sunshine, you've got the juice there to get, the potential for a supercell and maybe a tornadic supercell. I'm pulling up one more sounding here. Again, you see the fatter cape, and what I mean by that is you don't want it skinny down in this area. You see this kind of bulge right there. It's not a lot. I'm not trying to say this is eye-popping, but it kind of is. 260 joules per kilogram, a 0 to 3 kilometer, cape in that lowest level. That's what you need for kind of I don't know that these would be low-top supercells, but to get vigorous mesocyclones. And then we'll have a lot of vorticity kind of along and just ahead of that. I think that's under the surface thing. So should have, some vorticity right up here, 4 p.m., 5 p.m. So this is just a zone that I think is really interesting. Let's look at the jet stream winds. Here's your low-level jet. We've got that cranking here still, 50 to 60 knots. It increases across parts of Illinois and Indiana during the overnight, but here you go. Again, 21Z, about 4 p.m., just from top up. Dew points, you got those mid-60s wrapping around. I would expect supercells to initiate right in there. You got the low-level jet. You've got your 700 millibar jet is just screaming in here again at anywhere from 70 up to 80 knots. And then you're right beneath the 500 millibar jet streak as well. So if this area can do it, I kind of lean toward that as the best chance to see a visible supercell, and by doing that, the best chance of seeing a tornado. My second zones over here, I'll explain here. Let's go ahead and flip it on over to the NAM 3, the precipitation forecast. It kind of shows what I'm thinking, which is later in the day, we start to get the environment coming up. This is where the phasing is a little late, where the environment, I think if it came together 6 hours earlier, this would be a much more historic severe weather outbreak across Arkansas into Ohio, kind of right along the Ohio River Valley. As it stands right now, I think it could be a dangerous night. And I'm going to just kind of, buy this verbatim from the NAM 3 here, where I think overnight the low-level jet increases. This upper-level wave slowly starts to make its way east and starts impinging on that boundary. But this is not like, a more west-east oriented jet streak that's going to be, swinging into the Ohio Valley. It takes its time here with the slower flow. Again, it's kind of traveling northwest, northwest to southeast orientation here. The jet streak lifts. It's not kind of, curling or digging into the Ohio Valley. So it just takes some time for things to come together as this stronger flow. You see, it's just kind of overspreading. It's not a jet streak blasting into the region here. It's just slowly overspreading the area. The low-level jet, I kind of, wind it back here. Same thing, here's this lead wave early in the day. This is now kind of, mid-morning and then noon. Everything's already in place in this area because the main upper-level wave is much closer. And then it kind of takes, this is Wednesday afternoon, and then Wednesday evening, you'll start to see the purples returning. This is the low-level jet cranking back up and getting robust, thunderstorm activity going once again. But if you just come on back, 4 p.m., where do I want to be? It could be fun to be down in this area, southeast Illinois, southern Indiana, watching the deeper moisture lift up toward me. It could be fun to be here in eastern Arkansas, watching the environment get rather volatile. I mean, it's going to be even more hot and muggy down in that area. We'll talk about surface temperatures maybe getting into the mid upper 70s, near 80, with dew points flirting with 70 degrees across here. It is going to be juicy and very volatile down across this area. Do not mean any disrespect to it at all, but you're going to be dealing with cloud debris to your west and maybe ongoing convection here. So this is where I think you have the only chance of dry punch, clear volatile warm sector during the early to mid-afternoon, followed by a mid-afternoon eruption of deep convection. Does it have enough here to get tornadoes going, or is it kind of just enough to get, supercells or maybe some severe storms ongoing here? I don't know that I really care. If I'm going to be waiting till near or after dark for messy stuff down here. The other thing to consider is the terrain. There's a lot more that goes factored into these storm observations, at least on my end here. My priority is to be able to get out there and be able to document a storm, ideally a highly visible storm, and then something that I have a good chance of seeing and not being in danger of. And what I like about this area here, if northern and central Illinois goes, this is flat terrain and it's full of roads, paved roads at that. If I get down in here to this area, it is hilly. There's patchy forests. I will certainly chase here. I've done it before and I'll do it many times, in the future, but you have to kind of hope that you get it right with an area with a clearing here, or with trees that are spaced out, get an open field or up on a hill, or get the right road running through the right area to intercept the storm here. It's not a given. Whereas up here, it doesn't really matter. I can put myself pretty much anywhere and see any storm that I want as long as I'm there in time. Same thing down here though. It's pretty flat. There are roads. I'm just, flat out not as familiar with this area. So if you give me a chance between a chance of seeing a supercell in my home state or a chance of seeing a supercell in an area that I very rarely chase, I'm going to pick what I'm more comfortable with. So that's kind of my justification here for tomorrow's zones. I know that there's a lot more that I could show you here, a lot more different models. So when it comes to the HRRR and the NAM, they're your best bet. And I just, you got to pick one and you got to justify it. I think that this is the more likely scenario with this 700 millibar dry punch coming in. I'll show it to you right here with the 12 kilometer NAM. We'll look at relative humidity. Again, wind it back mid-morning. Here comes your dry punch right here. So here's all the ongoing rain and clouds that'll be moving through central and southern Illinois, southeast Missouri, into northern Arkansas. And then right as we get toward midday, you should see this clearing, this little punch coming out of Missouri into southeast Iowa, northwestern Illinois. That makes its way into the Illinois-Wisconsin border by mid-afternoon. And then maybe by 3, 4, 5 p.m., we could have a broken line of intense storms going up along the Mississippi River. Are they going to be tornadic? I don't know. But right now, my gut leans toward, if somewhere is going to be producing high-volume tornadoes, I actually lean toward the northern target. I'm going to be, maybe I feel silly about that later. I've been talking 25 minutes about this at this point, and I want to kind of wrap the video up. So let me zoom out and just kind of show you how the whole pattern evolves over the next 5 to 7 days. We're going to do that with the European model, which has had a pretty good handle on the kind of bones of the setup here and, not getting into the mesoscale details. So as we get going here, again, I know that some people will be here from Oklahoma City up towards Wichita, hoping for an initiating supercell or two as we get toward the evening. My fingers will be crossed for you. I do think that by the time we get to probably midnight, we'll have several severe storms ongoing across parts of Kansas and Missouri. Maybe some, electric hailstorms across northern and central Illinois. We'll get going into the Wednesday morning time frame. Let's see. I'm going to be able to click forward. There we go. This is your Wednesday, potential outbreak. The Euro's still going hard after this entire region here. So to be determined, it's a wide zone. Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, southern Michigan, down to Kentucky and Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri. Again, here's my outlook. Anywhere in red here, could be looking at a volatile day tomorrow if the environment arrives or kind of evolves in the right way. Early in the day, my money is on this area. This is probably where I will be. My kind of second zone is going to be the eastern zone, though. Southeastern, eastern Illinois into Indiana and Ohio. I think this will be kind of lower chance for high visibility things. It'll be kind of later in the day. And then as you get down into the Delta region, this is where I kind of think it's going to be messy and after dark. And then we can jump over. We'll look at the Euro model here and I'll show you the reloading storm setup across the south. So this is your Thursday. We'll look for clusters of showers and storms from eastern Texas into Kentucky and Tennessee. It just continues to reload. Another wave comes out on Friday. We could be looking for severe weather across the arc latex on Friday afternoon and evening, and then we get going into Saturday. And this is kind of when the pattern starts to end. We get a kicker wave that comes in. Saturday, this is the day where I was like, man, this could be maybe another organized severe weather event here across southern Illinois down into the Delta. So Saturday kind of brings it all to an end. Sunday, we get a wave and a front that finally pushes all of this out of the region. But by the time all of this is said and done, total precipitation across this area, we're talking about 6 to 12 inches of rain from parts of the Red River through the lower and mid-Mississippi Valley into the Ohio River Valley. This is going to be a headache for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And that's why I think that we'll get going initially here with Tuesday and Wednesday being severe weather days. But then I think the bigger story is going to be the flooding potential across that region Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We'll finish up with the latest outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. Here's their day one outlook for today. This is Tuesday. We have the enhanced risk across parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. The tornado risk is most significant here, where we may get initiation of a couple of supercells here, probably between 5 to 10 p.m. Close to sunset, if not right at sunset in this region here. Again, kind of from Oklahoma up toward the Oklahoma City to Wichita, and then these storms would move quickly off to the northeast as they, do so after dark. We'll jump back over here, look at tomorrow's outlook. We'll get an update here midday. We have this enhanced risk from the Great Lakes down to the Mississippi Delta region. A couple areas that this could be, split up. This is right now their tornado outlook, where they're highlighting central and southern Illinois over to Indiana and Ohio, and then down across the Delta region. So this kind of highlights zone number 2 that I was watching, and then zone number 3. Would not be surprised if the midday outlook update here around 12:30 p.m. Central doesn't just kind of lift this northward. I think that I've got enough confidence here to include the entirety of the state of Illinois in a higher tornado outlook here, even though I think it's going to be separate setups and separate confidence within each one. This is not one event that's going to just spread from west to east across the region. Several different little areas here day to day. Here is your Thursday outlook. Again, just a big old 15%. You're going to see the same thing as I get down here for this will be Friday and then Saturday. I'll leave it to you to read the discussions. They're going to say basically the same thing I just said, which is repeated rounds of showers and storms. Daily details are going to just have to be kind of nowcasted as we get closer. So good luck. Stay safe if you're out there. Good luck. Stay safe if you're a resident in some of the areas that I just talked about. A couple of very interesting days to talk about. I'll certainly be out there tomorrow, trying my hand. It's going to be Northwest Illinois. It's going to be Central Illinois. It's going to be Indiana, Ohio. Am I going to be on, down in the Delta? I don't really know, but for now, my money is on somewhere here in the state of Illinois, which seems to be ground zero for some really fascinating weather if you like this kind of thing over the last several weeks. Have a great Tuesday. I'll talk to you again in this fashion, a week from today, Tuesday, April 8th. I'll be looking for some of those, storm observation vlogs potentially over the next week.